Tokyo. Japan's successful launch of a rocket into orbit paves the way for the country to fully enter private sector launch services as IHI Aerospace moves ahead to snag orders from Southeast Asia. As SpaceX and other US startups ignite a space boom, companies in Asia are searching their niches in what is expected to grow into a $1 trillion market. Japan's National Space Agency will work with nearly 30 Japanese companies and institutions to develop reusable rockets to reduce launch costs to less than a fourth of current levels. Want to find out how Japan plans to grow in the aerospace sector? Well, stay tuned to find out. Japan's solid-fuel Epsilon 5 rocket successfully put 9 small satellites into orbit on November 9th, including an orbital debris removal technology demonstrator and a rideshare launch that has been postponed twice since early October. Now, the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, JAXA, which developed the Epsilon, is preparing to transfer operations of the rocket to IHI Aerospace, giving Japan a major presence in the global private sector launch business. Demand is growing for smaller satellites for monitoring conditions on the ground and telecommunications. SpaceX, led by Tesla CEO Elon Musk, is now deploying myriad small satellites in its Starlink communications service that has begun trials in the United States and elsewhere. Amazon.com, meanwhile, announced on November 1st its intentions to offer satellite-based internet service. The Epsilon is 26 meters long and is capable of carrying a payload of about 500 kilograms. This puts it between the 1 ton that can be carried aloft such heavy lift vehicles as the next-generation H3 rocket being developed by the JAXA-Mitsubishi Heavy Industries partnership, as well as SpaceX's Falcon 9, and the small lift vehicles being developed by startups that include America's Rocket Lab and Japan's Interstellar Technologies. Live footage shows the 26-meter rocket blasting off from the Yukinora Space Center in Kagoshima Prefecture at 7:55 p.m. Eastern or 9:55 a.m. local time. It's released the 9 satellites one by one as scheduled at an altitude of about 600 kilometers, the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency JAXA said in a statement. This mission marks the 5th flight of Epsilon rocket, which first flew in September 2013. The 4 previous Epsilon launches, which took place in September 2013, December 2016, January 2018, and January 2019, were all successful according to the JAXA data. Epsilon 5 released the primary payload, Rapid Innovative Payload Demonstration Satellite No. 2, RAISE-2, about 52 minutes after launch, and the remaining 8 were released 1 hour later, according to JAXA. While 8 of the 9 satellites were manufactured by a variety of Japanese companies and universities, the remaining one, Nano Dragon, was developed by the Vietnam's National Space Center. RAISE-2, built by Mitsubishi Electric Corporation, will test 6 different space technologies, including a small sensor called Marin, designed to gauge the position, altitude, and velocity of orbiting satellites, according to JAXA. Masashi Minato of IHI Aerospace said that its solid fuel enables immediate flight and is easy to handle, making the rocket very convenient, comparing the Epsilon with other vehicles offered by SpaceX and others that can carry more than 100 satellites. The selling point for the Epsilon will be the flexibility it offers by its ability to launch a satellite quickly. The largest of the tag-alongs is the Debris Removal Unprecedented Microsatellite, DRUMS, a 62-kilogram spacecraft that will test techniques for capturing pieces of space debris to remove them from the space environment. DRUMS, built by Kawasaki Heavy Industries, will deploy a small target sub-satellite, which it will then move away from before returning to rendezvous using automated visual navigation systems. Vietnam's Nano Dragon is a CubeSat that weighs 3.8 kilograms. The satellite, developed by the Vietnam National Space Center, VNSC, under the Vietnam Academy of Science and Technology, is part of the VNSC, made in Vietnam's Small Satellite Development Roadmap. Meanwhile, Epsilon 5's launch was initially scheduled for October 1st, but this was canceled about a minute before scheduled liftoff time due to a glitch found in the ground radar equipment. The launch was postponed again on October 7th because of unfavorable weather conditions. JAXA plans other launches of the rocket in the next fiscal year. From 2023, it will announce the Advanced Epsilon S. This will share parts with the H3 as well as electronic components that are used in automobiles in a drive to cut costs. Once a proof of concept model is launched, JAXA expects to transfer the vehicle to IHI Aerospace by 2024. Transfer to the private sector is designed to reduce costs and strengthen international competitiveness. The Epsilon already has rivals in the United States, where startups Relativity Space and Firefly Aerospace are making full use of 3D printers to keep expenses down. To be competitive, it is estimated that the Epsilon should cost about $22 million per launch, around half its current level. Developing applications for the rocket's services will be crucial. To reduce costs, more orders are needed to meet a certain level of launch frequency. Up to now, the Epsilon has primarily launched satellites as well as instruments used in fundamental research for Japan. IHI Aerospace plans to develop customers in Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, and other Asian markets, snagging orders from countries and startups. JAXA has a satellite launch order from Vietnam to be carried on the proof of concept vehicle in 2023, but a full-fledged push is required to snag orders from 2024 on. IHI Group has a strategy that integrates applications to create new businesses. Its long-term weather forecasts from 2 weeks to 2 months out are used to predict crops and power demand, for example, or in maritime shipping. As demand grows for satellite launches, more Japanese companies are entering the fray. Honda Motor announced in September it will develop a small rocket, while the Sony Group says it's developing a business that would allow customers to take in images from satellites. Space One, a Tokyo-based startup, plans to build a launch site for small rockets in Wakayama Prefecture. Japanese billionaire launches to the International Space Station while waiting for SpaceX moon ride. 3 new spacefarers launched to the International Space Station, and it involved a crew consisting of a Russian cosmonaut and 2 Japanese space tourists. One of the tourists on board was Yusaku Maezawa, a Japanese billionaire who announced his intention a few years back to fly around the moon on SpaceX's future Starship rocket one day. Maezawa's crewmates include Russian cosmonaut Alexander Misurkin and Japanese tourist Yozo Hirano, who is Maezawa's producer and manager. The group is slated to spend roughly 12 days on the ISS before heading back to Earth on December 19th. Their trip is part of Russia's re-emergence into the world of orbital space tourism. The flight comes just 2 months after Russia launched a Russian actress and director to the ISS to film scenes for an upcoming movie called The Challenge. Meanwhile, Maezawa and Hirano are flying to the ISS through a partnership with Space Adventures, a company that brokers trips to space for interested tourists. The company helped orchestrate trips to the ISS for 7 people in the early 2000s on Russia's Soyuz spacecraft. However, it paused flights after the retirement of NASA's space shuttle in 2011, as the space agency needed seats on Russia's Soyuz rockets to get US astronauts and international partners to the ISS. With the help of Space Adventures, Maezawa went through trainings in Russia's Star City to help prepare for his flight. Maezawa plans to film his time on the ISS with help of Hirano and post videos of his adventures on his YouTube channel. Before his flight, Maezawa also came up with a list of 100 things to do in space, according to Space Adventures. One of the items he hopes to do on his list is playing badminton with Misurkin. Maezawa, who made his fortune through an online fashion retail business called ZozoTown, has already made his interest in spaceflight well known. The billionaire announced in 2018 that he had purchased a trip around the moon on SpaceX's future Starship rocket, a vehicle the company is building to take people to the lunar surface and Mars someday. For that mission, dubbed Dear Moon, Maezawa plans to bring up to 8 people with him along for the journey. Originally, he had hoped to bring all artists with him, but in March, he launched a contest to allow anyone around the world to apply to fly with him. To give as many talented individuals as possible the opportunity to go, Maezawa also announced plans in 2020 to film a dating reality show to find a girlfriend to go to space with him, but that idea was eventually abandoned. In July, Maezawa posted a video of some of the filmed applications sent to him by people who were interested in flying around the moon with him. In the video, he said his team was in the final stages of screening to pick the finalists. Meanwhile, SpaceX's Starship rocket has yet to fly to orbit. The company has flown prototypes of the rocket to high altitudes above the Earth and attempted to land them back on the ground. Only one of those prototypes has been able to stick the landing without exploding afterwards. SpaceX is working toward its final orbital launch in either January or February 2022. Even if that is a success, there are still plenty of milestones the company must achieve before it can safely fly people to the vicinity of the moon and then land them back on Earth. With Starship's timeline somewhat dubious, this trip to the ISS is a much speedier way for Maezawa to get his space fix while he waits. Maezawa and his crew will join 2 Russian cosmonauts, 3 NASA astronauts, and a German astronaut from the European Space Agency who are already living on the ISS. What do you think about SpaceX's race with Japan and the success of Japan's solid-fuel Epsilon 5 rocket? Let us know by leaving a comment in the comment section below. Thanks!